All right, welcome back to Empowered Esquire TV. Now, you all have been asking me to discuss this Tory Lanez and Meg the Stallion case. And recently, Tory Lanez was rearrested, which I think kind of gave this topic a jolt of life again. And people started to wonder, yet again, well, what's going on with this case and what are the charges and what is it about and why was he rearrested? I don't get it. So, per your request for your makeup live, we're going to break down this Meg the Stallion and Tory Lanez debacle. You guys know debacle is one of my favorite words. Why? I don't know. It's just one of those words that I really, really enjoy. So let me give a shout out to everyone who is watching. I know some of you are in the bushes, but let me hop to the chat and give a special hello to one of the world's greatest mods, and that is Mr. Doug. Doug, you are so appreciated. All right. So before we hop into the topic, I'm going to share with you all a brief video. Let me see. I think the video is, goodness, what is it? Oh, wait, this one is a bit longer than I thought. Perhaps not this video. I I totally had it decided and made up in my mind that I would share this video with you all. For some reason, thinking that it was 3 minutes long. I now see that it is actually 23 minutes long. Okay, so yeah, we're not going to watch a 23-minute long video. Okay, so I'm going to pull up this article that I have that gives us the gist of what's been going on here. I'll add my commentary. Okay, and we're going to do it that way because 23 minutes of an intro, listen, that's just not my style. Now, I know to each his and her own, right? And I know on some YouTube channels, there are 20, 30-minute long intros. Okay. But to be real with y'all, that's just not my vibe. Okay. That's just not my style. All right. Hello to True Strong Warrior OCOV. Alrighty, so we're going to hop right into me reading you all this article and kind of breaking it down. So go ahead and tell me in the chat, y'all. Give me a 1 in the chat if you want to actually see the article as I read it, or give me a 2 in the chat if you're perfectly fine with just seeing some visuals of Meg and Tory while I read the article. All right, let me know in the chat. So a 1 in the chat if you want to actually see the article that I'm reading, a 2 in the chat if you're cool with, just seeing some visuals of Tori and Meg while I walk you through the article. Okay. And after the article, I have prepared for you, as I usually call it here, a cheat sheet. Okay. I've prepared for you a document that has the California Penal Code. And we're going to discuss what Tory Lanez is being charged with, how much prison time he could receive, and we're going to discuss protective orders and why he was rearrested. Okay. So, again, 1 in the chat if you want to actually see the article, right? 2 in the chat if you want to see some visuals of Meg and Tory, and then I can give you the gist of the article as I read it to you. Okay. All right. So I see most of you want to see the visuals of Meg and Tory while I kind of walk you through the article. And I'm totally cool with that. Okay. So, and please excuse me if you're hearing any background noise. I don't know if you are. Okay. But if you are, please excuse me on that. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to share with you all. I don't even know. Hold on. I had to stop sharing for a moment because the screen had so much going on. Sometimes YouTube has so much going on that you're just like, I can't even focus here. What are we doing? Okay, so let me take this back. How do I get rid of this here? Because that's going to be so distracting. Um, mm, you all give me one moment. You guys know tech issues never stop. So in the meantime, let me hop in the chat and say hello to everyone. All right. Hello to Nappy Yankee. Hello to T Bam. All right. And as Nappy Yankee says, like, share, and subscribe. All right. If you've been watching the content and you're not yet subscribed, why not? I mean, why not? You have nothing to lose. Okay. All right. I've done the best I can on trying to reduce your distractions, but listen, only but so much can be done with this YouTube sidebar with 5011 things going on here. Okay. So now I'm going to share my screen. All righty. And let's see what you're seeing. Okay. All righty. Okay, that works. I've reduced the distractions as much as I can. Okay, now fair use, fair use. We are using this video for educational purposes. If you would like to see more videos from this content creator, check out the link to the original video in the description. All right. So as you're watching the visuals here, okay, I am going to read to you an article that was published by CBS, okay? And CBS is going to kind of give us the gist of what happened with Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez. Okay, so we're going to get the gist of it. Okay, still so much going on that YouTube tab, y'all. I did the best I could. I did the best I could to reduce your distraction over there. All right, so here we go. Rapper Tory Lanez arrested for social media posts directed at Megan Thee Stallion. Rapper Tory Lanez, who is charged with shooting Megan Thee Stallion, ooh, should I have used that word? I don't know, in the Hollywood Hills in the summer of 2020, was taken into custody in a downtown Los Angeles courtroom on Tuesday for allegedly violating the terms of a pretrial protective order. Let's have a moment, shall we? Teaching moment, as I like to say. Now, you might be wondering, well, Felicia, what is a pretrial protective order? Okay, well, allow me to explain what a pretrial protective order is. So, you all, this case is technically considered domestic violence. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why. It is alleged that at the time of this incident, Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez were involved in some sort of intimate relationship. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with what makes something domestic violence and what doesn't make it domestic violence, if the victim has ever had an intimate relationship or a familial relationship with the alleged perpetrator, it is technically domestic violence. Okay, so here we have that was possibly a domestic violence situation. So I tell you that to tell you protective orders are the status quo. They are commonplace in a domestic violence situation. And here is why. When you have domestic violence, you have two people who know each other usually very well, which means usually the defendant is going to know where the victim lives. The defendant is going to know where the victim works. The defendant is going to know where the victim goes to school, where the victim hangs out, right? All of these things that mean that this defendant could harm this victim at any time. So in domestic violence cases, it is the norm to have a protective order. A protective order is sometimes called an order of protection and is literally an order from the court that says to the defendant, mind you, it says, stay away from this victim, stay away from this victim's home, stay away from this victim's school, stay away from their workplace. And now that we've evolved into such a digital age, it also includes stay off of this victim's social media. Stay away from their IG, their Facebook, their this, their that. And also do not mention this victim on your social media. So, in other words, in this case, Tory Lanez, an order was issued by the judge in which Tory Lanez was told, hey, you need to stay away from Megan Thee Stallion. Stay away from her physically and also stay away from her virtually. And now the allegation is that Tory Lanez violated that order. So that is a breakdown of protective orders and what they are and how someone can be found in violation of that. Okay, so that is the order that Tory Lanez was found in violation of. Now back to the article. LA County Superior Court Judge David Hereford agreed with prosecutors that some of Lanez's recent social media posts appeared to be messages directed at Megan Thee Stallion. The judge ordered that Lanez no longer make any public mention of the case or the victim. LA County Superior Court Judge David Hereford set bail at $350,000. Lanez's attorneys stated that bail would be posted shortly and that Lanez was not likely to remain in custody. Now let's break that down, shall we? So remember, I just said to you that in most cases nowadays, these protective orders include social media because we're in this social media era, right? So allegedly what happened is that Tory Lanez posted some things on his social media that the prosecutors interpreted as being targeted at Megan Thee Stallion. So it sounds as though he may not have used her name, but the post seemed to be subliminally addressing her. The prosecutors brought this to the attention of the judge, and the judge agreed. So the judge said to Tory Lanez, I agree with the prosecutors. You violated my protective order by pretty much sending messages to Megan Thee Stallion via your social media. So understand that Tory Lanez was not rearrested for doing something physically to Megan or anything of that nature. And in fact, it sounds as though he did not even actually mention Megan, right? But whatever he posted, it seemed to be aimed at her, and it was enough that the judge agreed. So I want you to take note of how extensive these protective orders are. Again, you don't have to physically harm a person to violate a protective order. You don't have to physically approach a person to violate a protective order because in this day and age, it includes social media. And now we're seeing that you don't even need to use the person's name on social media for you to be found in violation of a protective order. So that is what happened with Tory Lanez's recent arrest as far as him violating the protective order. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or thoughts about that? If you got a question for me about protective orders, give me a Y in the chat and drop your question and we'll get into it. If you have a question for me about how this protective order could affect the ongoing case, or rather not the order, but how this alleged violation of the order could affect the ongoing case, drop a Y in the chat along with your question. All righty. And while I wait for those questions to come on in, I am going to hop back into the article. Okay. So now, the 29-year-old Canadian rapper, whose real name is Daystar Peterson, is charged with one count each of a word with a semi-automatic fire and carrying a loaded unregistered fire in from a vehicle. The charges include allegations that he personally used the fire and inflicted great bodily injury. During a preliminary hearing last year, Los Angeles Police Department Detective Ryan Stogner testified that he spoke with Megan Thee Stallion and that she told him that she heard Lanez say, "Dance, B-word," before firing at her at about 4:30 a.m. on July 12, 2020, as the bikini-clad woman got out of a Cadillac SUV for the second time that morning following an argument. Pause. Now, remember what I said about domestic violence and intimate relationships and things like that. It is definitely supported that Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez were probably having an intimate relationship, right? The mere fact that they are around each other at 4:30 in the morning and they've been arguing all morning, I mean, obviously there was probably something allegedly going on there, right? For them to be in that intense of an argument at those times of the morning. Back into the article. No one heard dance B-word except for Megan? Defense attorney Sean Hawley asked on cross-examination. Correct, the detective responded. The victim identified in court and the criminal complaint only as Megan P. described the injuries to her feet as bleeding profusely and that she fell to the ground and crawled to a nearby driveway, according to the detective. She said that a female friend of hers who had been in the vehicle ran up to her afterward, along with Lanez, and that he emphatically apologized for what he did and offered to drive her home. The detective said that Megan the Stallion told police that Lanez offered her money and begged her not to say anything, telling her that he was on probation, something Stogner said he could never substantiate. The vehicle was subsequently stopped by police officers responding to a call of a shooting, and she initially told officers and doctors that she had not been shot and that broken glass had caused the injuries to her feet. She told the detective that she was extremely scared and embarrassed and was scared that Lanez would get into trouble and was concerned that police might shoot him, but was sincere, visibly distraught, and crying when she later admitted that Lanez had shot her. Teaching moments. I'm going to pop out of the article for a little teaching moment. First of all, where are y'all in the chat? I see all of you watching, and I know all of you are not so familiar with protective orders that you don't have any questions about them. I know that can't be right. I know that can't be right. So let's see the questions going in the chat for protective orders and domestic violence. Okay, so now let me ask everyone, as far as Tory Lanez is concerned, are any of you familiar enough with Tory Lanez's social media to enlighten us as to what Tory Lanez could have been saying about Megan on his social media? I'm not familiar enough, okay? But if you're in here and you're a major Tory Lanez fan, can you fill us in? Because we don't know what, and no one is saying exactly what it is that he could have said. And that's the biggest question is, what is it that he was saying that was, allegedly about her? I wonder. Hello to, I'm going to mess up your name. So, we call you SC because the Spanish is there, but the French is not, honey. So we're going to call you SC. And I hope you're doing well, SC. And hello to Christopher Quintero. How are you? I think I missed a few people as well. Hello to Miss Jams. How are you doing? Hello to OCOV Fat Boy. How are you, Fat Boy? And hello to the whole OCOV fam. I think a few of you are in here. I thank you so much for your love and support. I always appreciate y'all. Really? Everyone totally. I explained protective order so well that I can just slide on. Okay. All right, then we're gonna ease on down the road. So let's talk about how Megan was in this moment because it's very important. So the detective testified at the preliminary hearing that Megan seemed sincere, that she was visibly distraught, and that she was crying when she then told him that Lanez had allegedly shot her. Why is that important, everyone? Now, if you're a newbie here, you may not know why that even matters, right? You may be listening and you may be thinking, okay, so what's the big deal? But if you've been here for a minute, you know why that matters. Okay. Now, I'm not going to put any of my OGs on the spot because I know quite a few people are in the bushes tonight. It's a weeknight and you're probably exhausted from work, right? So I'm just going to walk you down the pathway of why it's important. So remember, the article says that initially Megan said that she was not shot. Initially, Megan said that some glass was in her foot and her, it may have been cut by said glass. Remember, that was the original story. She later on said, oh, well, actually, Tory Lanez shot me. That is the reason that the detective is going out of his way to describe that she was visibly distraught, that she was crying, because he needs to make sure that he can connect the importance of the second version of the story. Now, in the law, there is something called indicia of reliability. An indicia of reliability says, well, the first story that you give is probably the truth. It's what you said initially, and that's probably correct. And so through his training and his experience, I'm sure Detective Stogner knows that. He knows that any good defense attorney is going to say, well, she changed her story, and the first story was the correct story. Now, That is why he has to discuss her being visibly distraught and her crying and all these, because what he wants to say is, yes, I know this is the second version of the story, but just from the way that she appeared, this second version also has indicia of reliability. Because when you are crying, when you are upset, when you are distraught, you're not in the right mental state to think of a lie. You're not in the right mental state to make something up. So he wants to talk about her being distraught and sincere and crying because he's admitting, okay, second version of the story. But just from the way that she appeared when she told this second version is the truth. Because a woman who is so distraught doesn't have the capability of making up a false story. So he knows that indicia of reliability is going to be a problem here. And that is why he takes the time to describe the state that she was in when she finally admitted that, okay, yes, I was shot. So, indicia of reliability, everyone. All right. It's pronounced society commentary. Oh, okay. Well, hello, society commentary. And hello to Bar and Chains. Miss Jams makes an interesting point. She says, she probably didn't want to say anything in front of Tory. Possibly, but remember, Megan herself also gives reasons why she changed her story, right? She says that she didn't want the police to get into an altercation with him and shoot him, especially if he was armed. Especially if he was armed. She might be thinking, if I get the police involved right now, they may see his gun, he may pull the gun, he might end up getting harmed. So that was her initial point. Back into the article. Some of the bullet fragments were subsequently removed from the woman's feet by an orthopedic surgeon at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. But some bullet fragments still remain inside her, and she reported that she has ongoing physical therapy and difficulty walking in some types of shoes, according to the detective. Megan Thee Stallion, who was bleeding, and Lanez were among 4 people in the SUV that was stopped about a mile from the scene of where shots were reported, according to LAPD officer. A handgun that was warm to the touch was discovered inside the vehicle, and 4 spent casings were found at the scene. Okay. In a video posted on Instagram Live following the shooting, Megan Thee Stallion said, "Tory shot me. You shot me. And you got your publicist and your people lying. Stop lying." All right, y'all. Now, let's talk about that last portion there. So there's been a lot of back and forth on, was she shot? Was she not shot? Y'all, according to the detective, she was shot. According to the detective, bullet fragments were removed from her feet. According to the detective, spent casings were found at the scene. So there's been a lot of gossipy and a lot of back and forth, but we have a detective who is, pitting his I shouldn't say pitting, I should say putting his career and reputation on the line to say that he's seen evidence that she was shot. So, hey, listen, be that as it may, okay? Hello to Rockin' with the Truth. How are you? How are you doing? How is everyone how's everyone going? How is it going? Miss Jam says he blew the weapon 4 times. They found 4 spent casings, Miss Jam. So that would lead us to believe that, yeah, he fired the weapon 4 times. So, I mean, we'll see how things unfold. So, give me some questions on what's been going on thus far. I created, like I said, a little cheat sheet for you where we are going to talk about the charges in this case. Before we dive into that, I want to give you all the opportunity to, let me know what you're thinking. And also, I'm going to do call-ins here as well. I'm going to allow you all to call in, okay? So let me just post to our community tab, letting everyone know we are live and this is a call-in show. All right. So once I go through our cheat sheet, I am going to open up the live and allow you all to call in and have some little chit chat with me. Hello to Miss Mo. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate your compliments, and it's so good to see you. Doug has our Cash App up, so if you are interested in giving to the channel, here is the information on that, okay? And you are welcome to do that at your level of comfort, at your leisure, okay? All righty, y'all. So I'm gonna pull up the cheat. Oh my goodness, is that the mugshot? Oh Lord. All right, so I'm gonna pull up the cheat sheet for us on the actual charges that Tory Lanez is facing in this case and possible prison time and things like that. So we're going to have that conversation. I actually want to put up Miss Mo's comment. She says, someone, Meg, she didn't, herself. Right. Okay, so that's the mystery because there's been a lot of back and forth about who did what. But again, this detective is putting his self on the line to say, no, I've seen evidence that this woman was actually harmed. Okay, so time will tell, I guess is the best we can say at this point, right? All right, so let me stop sharing that for just a moment while I get the Word doc ready for you all so we can hop into our little cheat sheet. All right, let's see. Can you all see that? Yes. Now, my only concern is this is a bit small. So I'm going to up the type here. Let's see. Oh, I want it a bit bigger still. Let's see. I think that's good. Or should I make it a little bit bigger? For good measure, let's make it a little bigger. Okay, I like that. I like that. So, what we are about to do, everyone, is dive into the California Penal Code so we can talk about what Tory Lanez is being charged with and what the potential punishments are for his charges. Hello to Karen J. Long time no see. Such a pleasure to see ya. Such a pleasure to see ya. And Miss Jam says the detective would know what a shot looks like. I mean, come on. I mean, hello. So, as I said, we're gonna see. But I don't think a detective would say that something happened to someone that didn't happen. So who knows? There's been a lot of gossip and a lot of back and forth, and we are going to see ultimately what pans out. Nappy Yankee riding for Tory Lanez here. Mugshots always make your face look fatter. I mean, listen, the camera itself adds 11 pounds, so I'm not surprised. I'm not. Angelica Diallo says, hey, good people. Hello, Angelica. How are you? All right, so here we go, y'all. This is the California Penal Code for what Tory Lanez is being accused of. Okay, so it's California Penal Code 245, Section A2. Under California Penal Code Section 245A2, it is a crime for any person to commit a blank upon the person of another with a blank. You see it on the screen. All right. So that's the wording of the code. Okay. What does that mean in layman's terms? Well, in layman's terms, it means it is a crime in the state of California for someone to harm another person using some type of I have to say some words here, okay? Using some type of weapon. All right. Under California law, a blank is an unlawful attempt coupled with a present ability to commit a violent injury on the person of another. Let's break that down, shall we? So, in other words, under California law, an A is when someone tries to harm someone else and they actually could harm that person. You have to remember present ability. Don't forget that. Present ability. So it's not just that you try to harm someone and you want to know, it's could you really? So it's important to note that. In other words, what Tory Lanez is accused of, is that he unlawfully tried to harm Megan. He could harm her, meaning he was in a position to actually be able to harm her. And that harm could have caused her some injury, which we know that allegedly it did. Okay. I see a love connection going on in the chat. I'm not going to put anybody on the spot, but as I have always said, I think you all would be cute together from what I've seen in Avatar. All righty, let's keep it moving. So, a person can be convicted of, with a fire, even if the thing is not fired. All right, let's dig into that. So, for example, hitting a person with a weapon or pointing a weapon at a person to scare them. So, it's important to note that. It's important to note that in the state of California, even if the gun isn't fired, I said it, y'all. What does it matter at this point? Even, even if the gun isn't fired, the person could still be found guilty. But here we have a case where the allegation is that the weapon was fired. So that just goes to show that Tory Lanez is in a very precarious situation, y'all. Because in California, they'll find you guilty even when you don't fire the gun. And here we have them finding spent casings and bullet fragments that insinuate that the gun was fired. So we know that Tory Lanez, as I said, is in a precarious situation here. Okay, let's continue. Any device. Oh, hold on. Let me separate this. I knew I should have separated it from the beginning. I knew I should have. The code defines, is this the same size as? Yeah, I think so, right? This is large. Yeah, okay. The code defines a fire as any device designed to be used as a weapon from which a projectile is discharged or expelled through a barrel by the force of an explosion or other form of combustion. All right, so let's break that down. What does that mean in, normal person terms? Well, here's what it means. The state of California wants people to know that even something that they may not consider to be a firearm, if there is something inside that device that you can eject it and it comes out, it expels through a barrel or some other type of explosion, and it causes harm to that other person, the state of California will consider it to be a fire. Now, you might be thinking, well, what else could do that? Y'all, there are many weapons out there that are technically not a fire, but under this definition, they would be considered to be one. Think of weapons such as BB guns. Think of weapons that cannot fire, actual bullets, but they do have something that comes out projectile, right? Through a barrel by force. Keep that in mind. And this is what the state of California is letting everyone know. They are putting everyone on notice that you may not consider it to be a weapon, but if you can use some sort of force and have something shooting out of that thing that could harm someone else when it shoots out, we're considering it to be a weapon. Okay, very important to know, especially for my people who live in California. Okay. Oh, Doug said that's his peeps. Oh, okay. Y'all know each other. Okay. All right. All right. Miss Mo has a good question. She says, so even just brandishing the weapon can result in this charge. Yes, Miss Mo. Yes, 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 yes. Everyone give it up for Miss Mo. She is the star pupil of the night. Yes. Even just brandishing this item is enough under the California Penal Code to be guilty. Yes. Even just a brandish and a threat is enough. Hello, Tamara. Sharice, how are you, darling? Darling, every time I see your picture, I remember that I wanted to go to your website, and I keep telling you to remind me. I hope you remind me today, because I get to the end of the live, and I'll be like, all right, ready to go. So if you remember, please remind me. All righty. Let's keep it moving, shall we? Where are we? Oh, here we go. So blank with a firearm can be charged as a misdemeanor or as a felony. The level of charge depends on the defendant's prior criminal history, whether anyone was injured, the severity of the injury, and the victim. All right, let's take a moment and break that down, shall we? So, this charge in itself can be either a misdemeanor, meaning a year ish, of imprisonment or less, or a felony, meaning more than a year of imprisonment. It depends on if that defendant has ever had any prior criminal history, if that defendant has ever had any prior criminal charges, criminal convictions. It also depends on if someone was actually harmed by this weapon. And then it depends on, well, how badly were they harmed? And then lastly, it depends on who the victim was. And when we say who the victim was, let's be clear. We don't mean was the victim Meg the Stallion or, Waukesha who works at Walgreens. No. We mean, was the victim someone who is legally protected, meaning legally specially situated? So was the victim a minor? Right? Was the victim a peace officer, a police officer? That is what is meant legally when they say, well, who was the victim? Okay. So now applying that to Tory Lanez, we don't know for sure if he's being charged with the misdemeanor or the felony charge, but we know that he allegedly doesn't have an extensive criminal history. I'm going to go with that because I didn't find much. So I'm going to go with that. We know that someone was injured. And we know that this person is alleging they had to remove bullet fragments from their feet. So a somewhat severe injury. So, hey, it looks like this could have been charged as a felony. All right, so let's say it was a misdemeanor. What would that mean? Well, for this charge, Tory Lanez could face anywhere from 6 months to a year in jail and a fine of up to $10,000. Okay, so now what if it is a felony? Let me increase that. All right, so what if it was charged as a felony? Well, we know that he could receive up to 4 years of imprisonment, but it could be more. And here are some factors that control whether or not that number of 4 goes up or down. Okay, how it slides on the sliding scale, if you will. Miss Me, Miss Mo, star pupil. Yes, you are. I'm happy to provide a free tutoring to my classmates in need. Would you look at that? Would you look at that? Y'all, not only is she a star pupil, she is willing to share her knowledge. Look at the lovely family that we have here on Empowered Esquire TV. All right, everyone. Thank you, Doug. Y'all, check out Jemerit. That is Mara Sharice's company. Okay, check them out. And yes, hit the like button. Listen, if you are here, I'm going to refresh it, but I'm looking at the likes and I'm looking at the amount of people that are in the chat. And let me tell you, okay, they don't match. So let's get the likes to kind of be equivalent to how many people are hanging out today. All right. And as Doug always reminds us, that is there. Angelica said teacher's pet already. Every class has to have a teacher's pet, and I'm not going to say who because the teacher doesn't tell you who the teacher's pet is, right? But there are quite a few people that would probably be considered, teacher's pet. All righty. So let's hop back into our little cheat sheet now. So felony assault with a firearm. Oh, I just went straight for it, didn't I? I said every word. This is why, y'all, the YouTube, let me tell you, this YouTube censorship, we are going to be moving forward into our own platform. Yes, you heard that right. I'm going to create our own platform because my ability to teach you is limited by me having to duck and dodge words, and it's so childish and dumb. So yeah, we'll work on that. So felony blank with a blank is punishable by a fine and up to 4 years of imprisonment. Here are the factors that increase or decrease that. Okay, so if the blank was likely to produce great bodily harm, meaning some serious injury, then the defendant is facing imprisonment for up to 4 years. If the blank involved a semi-automatic weapon, then the defendant could be facing up to 9 years of imprisonment. If the blank involved oh goodness, I don't know how you replace that, but you see that word, a blank weapon or a machine blank, imprisonment of up to 12 years. So right off the bat, we can say, okay, we don't think that Tory Lanez had this type of weapon here. Let me highlight it for you. We don't think he had that, right? Right off the bat, we can say we don't think he had that. So we don't think he's looking at up to 12 years here. Now, whether he had one of these, now that we don't know. Okay, so it could have been this. And if it was that, we know he's facing up to 9 years. So realistically, we can say he may be facing, if he was charged with the felony, anywhere from 4 to 9 years. We know that more than likely, it's not to the point where he's looking at up to 12. All right, so I am going to hop in the chat. Rocking with the Truth says, hey, everyone, I'm listening, but trying to cook and watch the dog outside. I understand, honey. I understand, honey. Thank you for the thumbs up. And everyone, how are we doing thus far? Is the cheat sheet helpful to you? So tell me, when I show you these Word docs, are they helpful? Let me know. Give me a 1 in the chat if the Word doc format is helpful for you. Give me a 2 in the chat if you're like, I don't know. I think we could try something different. Let me know. All right. Leah Day says, I heard the next hearing is a discovery hearing on June 10th. What are a few ways the discovery hearing could go in this case, in your opinion? So first of all, everyone give a warm hello to Miss Leah Day. I think that you are a newbie, Leah. You are welcome here, and it's so good to see you. So now, discovery hearing on June 10th. Now, for those of you who may not be, at all familiar with discovery hearings in criminal cases, there is usually extensive discovery in these cases, especially when you're dealing with medical records. And then there were bullet fragments. So you know that there's some type of ballistics analysis, right? So there's going to be extensive discovery. So when you have a discovery hearing, it really is a status hearing. It's an opportunity for both prosecution and defense to inform the court about what's happening with the exchange of discovery. So, for example, you may get both parties saying, well, Your Honor, we've exchanged everything and we're reviewing it. Or you may get defense saying, Your Honor, prosecution still has outstanding discovery. We still don't have this report. We still don't have that report. Your Honor, can you order them to hand these things over? So what you can expect on June 10th is a conversation about whether or not discovery is completed, or about outstanding discovery that is still needed to be exchanged before the case can move forward. So that is what you can realistically expect on June 10th. Okay. All righty. Nappy Yankee giving me ideas here. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to keep that in mind, Nappy Yankee. Thank you, Nappy. All right, so let's hop back into our cheat sheet. So I saw some ones. Okay, so you guys like the cheat sheet. Okay, so we'll keep it up then. Initially it was my idea that this would be helpful for everyone to see in writing, how this is not 28. Oh, you know what? The heading is 28. I'm looking at it like, now I know darn well. Okay, 30, 29, what's the difference? Okay, so now we're going to talk about the elements of this crime. So what does that mean? Elements of a crime. Well, that means what are the separate portions of this case that the prosecution have to prove? For the prosecution to get that guilty verdict, for them to get that Tory Lanez is guilty, what do they have to prove? Okay. Hello to Atmos Love Zone. Hello to Take R. Kelly, Give Us Back Tupac. How are you? How are you? All right. Let's get into it now. So, according to the Judicial Council of California criminal jury instructions, now remember, we've had this conversation. Remember, we've had this conversation. Every single state has published jury instructions. So when you see a charge, when you see a civil case, you don't have to wonder what the elements of the case are. You don't have to wonder what has to be proven in that case. All you have to do is Google the published jury instructions for that state, look up that statute, and boom, it is all there for you. All right. So, according to the Judicial Council of California, criminal jury instructions to prove guilt, right, under Penal Code 245A2, the state has to prove first that the defendant did an act with a blank that by its nature would directly and probably result in the application of force to a person. Okay, that may sound like gobbledygook. So allow me. Okay, so the first thing, the prosecution has to prove that Tory Lanez did something with a blank that if it were to be completed, if whatever he was trying to do would have actually happened, it would have resulted in someone, or it would have resulted in Megan having some sort of physical force applied to her. Got it? Okay, if you need me to break that down more, let me know. Second, the defendant did the act willfully. Second, Tory Lanez willfully attempted to harm Megan Thee Stallion with this weapon. That's the second thing the prosecution has to prove. And what does willful mean? Willful means he didn't have someone else threatening him. So he didn't do it because he was under threat by someone else. He wasn't under duress. He wasn't unsure of what he was doing. He knew what he was doing and chose to do it. That is what the prosecution has to prove. All right. Third, when the defendant acted, they were aware of the facts that would lead a reasonable person to realize that the act by its nature would directly and probably result in the application of force to someone. Again, the law likes to do a lot of aware of that a person who is reasonable with objective standards would have understood that enacting such a plan of no. Let's break it down. The prosecution has to prove that when Tory Lanez did whatever he did, he knew that if it happened, right, if it went through, what he was doing would probably cause Megan injury. That's what the prosecution has to prove. Now, the reasonable person portion of it is important because if for some reason Tory Lanez tries to make the argument that he was not aware that what he did would have caused Megan injury, this is the fallback for the prosecution, y'all. So here's what could happen. Let's say Tory Lanez says, I wasn't aware that what I did could have caused Megan to be shot in the foot. Well, then the prosecution totes out that reasonable person standard and they say, Your Honor, a reasonable person would know that if you shoot a weapon, if you discharge a weapon in the area of, in the vicinity of a person's feet, they may get shot in the foot. So the reasonable person standard is really there as a fail-safe, as a answer to the defendant who may try to argue that they truly didn't know that it could cause harm, right? That's when the prosecution brings out the reasonable person standard and says, well, Your Honor, a reasonable person would know that. So this statute still applies. All right, I'm in the chat. Miss Jams, how are you? Miss Jams is saying he had intent. That in essence is the allegation. Okay, that in essence is the allegation. All righty. How are y'all feeling about this breakdown thus far? Are y'all digging this breakdown? I'm going to have to start coming up with some new, talk back to me's. Give me a Y in the chat if this breakdown is working for you. If you're feeling enlightened, and give me an N in the chat if you're like, no, I need you to back it up some, Felicia, because what happens is when you're used to information and you're used to reading something, you tend to just full steam ahead. So I want to make sure that you're taking this in, you're getting this, and I'm not just kind of breezing through it in a way that I understand it, but you may not be catching on. Okay. Okay, good. All right. Everyone's with me. All right. So let's go back. Let's hop back in. Number 4. When the defendant acted, they had the present ability, remember we talked about that, to apply force with a blank to a person. Again, sounds like more gobbledygook, right? But what it means in this case is when Tory Lanez did whatever he allegedly did, he had the ability to harm Megan. It was possible. Now, what is some way that maybe he didn't have the ability? Well, here's an example. What if it was something that appeared to be a firearm, but it actually wasn't? It just looked like one, but it didn't have a barrel. It didn't have bullets, right? Well, then you could say, well, did he actually have the ability to harm her? So that's just an example of where present ability might work to the defendant's advantage. So now let's get into force. The application of force does not require bodily injury. So remember, as we go through this, we've been talking about causing Megan to think that she could be harmed, the potential of her being harmed, but we didn't actually say she had to be harmed. And that is written into the statute that the person doesn't actually have to be harmed. Remember, we talked about that very early on. Really, the threat and the action is enough in itself. So here we have the application of force does not require bodily injury. Even a slight touch can be considered as force. Also, even if the defendant never intended to harm the victim, it may still be considered a violation of this statute. So we had, who said intent here? Who was that? Someone said intent. Miss Jams. So Miss Jams mentioned intent, right? And she said he had intent. Well, it's not necessarily the intent to harm the person, right? And this is where we have another nuance. It is the intent to do the act. Remember, we talked about that whole reasonable person standard. And this is the reason why they're so nuanced about the intent. This is the reason why, Miss Jams. Because again, any defendant could say, oh, well, I didn't mean to harm her. Tory Lanez could say, well, I didn't mean to harm Megan. Again, that is why the reasonable person standard and the intent is so important. Because all prosecution has to say is, Your Honor, any reasonable person would know that she could be harmed. And even though Mr. Lanez did not intend to harm Megan, he intended to discharge that weapon. Okay, and a reasonable person would know that if you discharge that weapon, she could be harmed. So that's a nuance in this statute. Ooh, I'm loving this, y'all. I'm such a law nerd. The intent is not about intending to harm. The intent is about intending to discharge the weapon or to do something with the weapon. Okay, all righty. I'm back in the chat. Mara says, I'm picking up what you're throwing down. Oh, you got the shovel, Mara. Let me know if you get that. You got the shovel? Let me know if you get that. Angelica says, I don't know all the allegations of this story, so it sounds interesting. Yes, so the allegation is, you don't know the details of the allegations. So we talked about that a bit earlier in the stream if you want to run it back. But the allegation is that they were arguing. Tory Lanez brought out this weapon. He then shot Megan the Stallion in the foot. That's the allegation. No, Miss Jams, you're missing it. It's not about whether or not he was aiming at Megan. No. It's not about that. The statute is just saying you don't have to intend to harm the person. That's all the statute is saying. The statute is saying that all you have to do is intend to take the action that you're taking with the weapon. That's the nuance there. Okay. Mara said she got it. She's laughing. Alrighty. So now that we know all about what he's being accused of under the California Penal Code, all of the definitions, how much prison time, all of this, your next question has got to be, well, how does he defend himself? Now, a lot of people online have been alluding, have been suggesting that Megan is much larger than Tory Lanez, which she is. If you got eyes, okay, you got eyes that you could see that, okay? So a lot of people online have been saying, well, Megan is so much larger than Tory that it is realistic to think that perhaps he felt threatened and perhaps he was defending himself. So let's explore what that might look like. What would it look like if Tory Lanez really said he did this in self-defense? All right, so let me increase the fonts. Oh, I can't do it with the title because then the doc gets all confused. I don't know, 30. Okay. So here we go. Self-defense is an affirmative defense to assault charges. Now, you can argue self-defense. So a defendant can argue self-defense, but it's important to note that a defendant can also argue defense of others. And a lot of people don't know that. Not only can you say you did something in self-defense, you can also say you did something to defend someone else, to protect someone else. Okay, that's a thing. So realistically, Tory Lanez could argue, yes, I did this. Yes, I hurt Megan, but I really was just trying to defend myself. Or, yes, I hurt Megan, but I really was just trying to defend Kelsey, the other girl that was there. Okay. So self-defense is an affirmative defense. Affirmative defense. Let's highlight that. Affirmative defense. Is there anybody in the house who knows what an affirmative defense is? Give me a 1 in the chat if you know what an affirmative defense is. And with that, I'm going to take a moment and take a water break. Y'all, I fibbed. I said I was going to have a water break, and I ended up tasting some of my leftover dinner that I didn't finish. And I'm like, man, this is good. Totally just drinking water over here, y'all. And what you all just heard is Max squealing. For what reason? I have no idea. He's literally just standing there and he just squealed. Anywho, letting the broccoli, having my piece of broccoli. Okay, so I'm in the chat. Hello to Sharina. How are you, Sharina? Sharina, I think you're new. So what's up to the newbie, Sharina? How are you, darling? And you are so welcome here. We are glad to have you. And all my newbies, if you're a content creator, drop CC. Just put the letter CC, letters CC in the chat so that I can give you a shout out when I do my little content creator roundup. Okay. Miss Jam is filling us in. Megan is 5'10". Tory is 5'3". What? Tory Lanez is 5'3"? You got to be kidding me right now. Wow. Okay, yeah. That's a difference. Take R. Kelly, give us back. Tupac says, I haven't been following the case that closely. Were his fingerprints on the trigger or grip? That we don't know. We don't know that. So there are a lot of things that we don't know yet. Angelica says she can speculate. She could speculate. I actually like that. Angelica could speculate as to what an affirmative defense would be. So Angelica, speculate for us. Tell us what you think an affirmative defense would be. Swan X, how are you? Long time no see. Where you been? Where you been? I haven't seen you in a while. And I kind of feel like, I mean, why? Why is it that you've been gone? I kind of feel like you should give us some update on how you've been. All right, Sharina, is this your guess at affirmative defense? Someone has the ability, intention, or blank to harm you? Is that your guess at affirmative defense? Huh. Sharina said she's very shy. You shouldn't be, Sharina. You're awesome. You're awesome. I can already tell. Swan X is a content creator. Okay, all right. When I do my roundup, I won't forget you. Angelica's guess is affirmative defense might mean that the person had the right to defend themselves based on the circumstances. All right. No, but you get an A for effort. So allow me. An affirmative defense is a defense that whenever a defendant claims it, that defendant has to prove it. One more time for the people in the bushes and the people in the back. An affirmative defense is a defense that when the defendant tries to claim it, the defendant has to prove it. Now, why does that matter? Well, usually a defendant doesn't have to prove anything. Usually the burden of proof is all on the prosecution. But if the defendant tries to use an affirmative defense, then they have a burden of proof. So if Tory Lanez tries to say, okay, yes, I shot Meg, but I did it in self-defense. Or yes, I shot Meg, but I shot her to protect Kelsey. Then Tory Lanez has to prove that. He has to present evidence at a trial that proves that Megan was harming him, that she was threatening to harm him, or that she was harming someone else, or that she was threatening to harm them. So that is why it is called an affirmative defense. Ah, my girl Angelica got it. My girl, somebody's coming up on your teacher's pet title. I'm not going to say any names, but my girl Angelica got it. They have to affirm the defense. Exactly. So now you know, right? We just had a little teaching moment. Whenever you see affirmative defense, it means the burden of proof is shifting. Because if the defendant tries to use this defense, they have to affirm it. They have to prove it. All right. So let's dig in. According to the California Penal Code, a person can lawfully claim self-defense or defense of another if, okay, so here are the things that Tory Lanez would have to prove if he is trying to say, hey, I shot Meg, but I did it in self-defense. So first, the defendant reasonably believed that he or she or someone else was in imminent danger of suffering bodily injury or being touched unlawfully. So here's the first thing. Tory Lanez has to prove that either he or someone else was in physical danger, that Megan Thee Stallion was going to do something, or she had threatened to do something that was going to physically harm either him or someone else. Okay, so that's the first option. Here's a second option. The defendant reasonably believed that the immediate use of force was necessary to defend against that nature. Sorry, not second option. These are all the elements. They all flow together. My bad. The defendant reasonably believed that the immediate use of force was necessary to defend against that danger. So Tory Lanez reasonably believed that in order to protect himself or someone else from whatever Megan was allegedly going to do, he had to take action. He had to believe that there was no other way. Now remember that word reasonably, y'all. Remember, we talk about this word reasonably, and a reasonable person and all. That is what? That is the fail safe, everyone. So if Tory Lanez tries to say, well, Megan was chewing her gum aggressively, and so I got scared that she was going to hurt me, so I shot her. No, the prosecution will say, Your Honor, that's not reasonable. It's not a reasonable belief that Megan was going to harm him because of the manner in which she chewed her gum. Remember, that reasonability standard is the failsafe. So yes, Tory Lanez can try to argue all of this, but it has to be reasonable. Megan had to have been acting in a way that a reasonable person would say, "Uh-oh, I'm worried." All right. Third standard. The defendant used no more force than was reasonably necessary to defend against the danger. Again, we have that word reasonably, and you know why? Because you know that word is the failsafe. Because Tory Lanez could argue, again, back to my example, that Megan was chewing her gum aggressively, and so it scared him. But that is why the reasonably standard comes in. Because if he tries to argue self-defense, whatever it is that she did or threatened to do, a reasonable person would have to say, oh, okay, I need to defend myself here. And so that applies to the force. If he tries to use self-defense, he's going to have to prove that shooting her was a reasonable amount of force to stop her from what she was about to do. Meaning, if she said, I'm going to push you right now, or if she said, I'm going to slap you right now, is shooting her reasonable force? No. No. If she said, I don't like you and I'm going to break your phone, is shooting her reasonable force? No. If Tory Lanez tries to take the self-defense route, he is going to have to prove that whatever manner she came at him in was so violent that shooting her was equal reasonable force. That is what he would have to prove for self-defense. All right, so Sharina says, is it subjective? No, it is not, Sharina. In the law, the reasonable standard is always objective. Almost always, because you should never say always. So almost always, when you see reasonable, it is objective, which means it is a societal standard. What would a reasonable person do? What would a reasonable person think? It is not subjective, which is why, as I said, it's a failsafe. Because Tory Lanez can't come in there and make these ridiculous arguments and try to rely on them if they don't comport with the standard of a reasonable person. All right, y'all. Well, listen, that's all I got for you on my end. I've been talking quite a lot tonight. Y'all let me do all the talking tonight. My. So I'm going to let you all call in. I'm not going to be here long because it's 8 o'clock. Okay, so you guys have got a few minutes with me. I'm going to put the link in the chat, and I'm going to give you all a few minutes. If nobody joins me in a few minutes, I'm outie, okay? But if you guys join me, then I will give you a few minutes to chop it up with me and give me your questions and give your thoughts and opinions and, talk to the people, okay? So let's hit back to our little visuals here. Yes, go ahead and like this video. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel. If you are thinking, I'm not a Cash App person, I don't send Cash Apps. You don't have to. All you got to do is like the video and subscribe. Done. Okay? So, oh yes, Mara's reminding me about her website. So listen, while we see if anyone is going to join us, we're going to go to Mara's website. All right. J'aimerais. All right. So I'm pulling up Mara's website now, and we are going to go to her website while we see if anyone is going to join me backstage. Okay. It's up. All righty. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Chrome tab. All right, everyone. So you should be seeing her beautiful website. Yes, you are. So this is Mara Sharice's website for her company, Je Mérite. It stands for, or rather, it means I deserve. She has free shipping and free returns on all orders. That's awesome. And here is her website has different types of silk products, right? So you can see her new collection. If you go here, it's the I almost said it wrong. The boudoir collection. And you can see here, I believe that's Mara herself, and a model modeling the products. And we're going to scroll down some. Oh, beautiful. So here she has a camisole. She has a pleated shorts. So I'm thinking you could buy the cami and the shorts, right? Then she has a gown and she also has the matching robe. Y'all, let me tell you, these are reasonable prices for high quality silk. Okay. If you're not familiar with silk, oddly enough, silk is one of the materials that I'm obsessed with. And so I can tell you, as someone who is usually in the market for silk blouses and things like that, this is reasonable pricing. Okay. Because if you go to Saks or Nordstrom, those silk blouses and silk camisoles and robes and gowns are $400 to $500 or more, sometimes in the thousands. So this is actually reasonable, okay? Because I can already know, that we have to explain pricing. Okay, and then we have a little note from the founder. All right, and so this is her. Look at her gorgeous face. Tamara Thomas, entrepreneur, mentor, and zennial. She's a native New Yorker, born in Brooklyn. What's up, VK? And raised in the Bronx. The Bronx? No, we still love you, Mara. A daughter of America's Caribbean. Caribbean girl, the United States Virgin Islands. Nice. So I'm guessing her parents are USVI. A lover of history from Broadway to Marvel. Oh, history and arts. We got to talk about Marvel, Mara, because I'm totally obsessed with Marvel too. A soul foodie, so am I. Oh, Mara. And a Trekkie. Okay, that I'm not. And a world traveler, so am I. An apparel, accessories, and footwear production professional. You, you go, girl. With over 20 years experience in the fashion industry. Oh my goodness, look at this. So now she gets into her inspiration for the capsule collection. Okay. So, everyone, her website is in the chat. Go and check out her company. It's awesome. I love to see fellow Black woman entrepreneurs. I really, really just, I can't even explain to you all. And I was talking to another fellow entrepreneur about this the other day. I can't explain to you all the value of your time. I can't explain to you how it feels to put your time into your own vision instead of someone else's. There's nothing like it. So anywho, Angelica, and Angelica, what? She said, why did you say it like, oh no. I clicked the wrong thing. Angelica said, why'd you say it like that though? I don't know. Why did I say what like what? Why did I say what like what? OCOV Fat Boy says she's beautiful. She sure is. She sure is. Angelica, yes, you should send it to your husband. Absolutely. Absolutely. And Mara is telling us that all of her products are made in New York City and that everything is lined so you can also wear it out. That black dress would be lovely for a night out with some nice heels. Christopher Quintero said, BK, what's up, Brooklyn? I love Brooklyn and I love Brooklynites. Just throwing that out there. Nappy Yankee says, seriously, everyone stay safe. Yes, everybody stay safe out here because it's getting crazy. So listen, there's nobody backstage. I'm not gonna respond. I see you, Angelica. I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. Doug said Black owned and American made. That's right. So listen, y'all, it's 8:15 and there's nobody backstage. So I love you all, but I'm gonna head out. Okay, I'm gonna head out. So listen. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Empowered Esquire TV. I just lost my whole train of thought. Oh, yes. You bring something unique to this world, to this channel, to my life that no one else does. And I hope you know that. I hope you were empowered by the information that was shared today. And I hope to see you soon. If you're replay gang, if you're catching this on the replay, tell me in the comments, what do you think about potential prison time for Tory Lanez? You think Tory Lanez will actually go to prison for this? And if so, what are you thinking about potential prison time? Okay. Miss Jams told me to go eat my dinner and relax. Yes, I'm going to go do that. Alrighty. So I will see you all later.